All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast on MMAUnhinged. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Oscar Silva. How's it going over there?
Coming off a big 4th of July weekend, I'm definitely in high spirits, and I was in high spirits watching UFC 276 as well. I know some people kind of soured on the title fights, but we had a ton of crazy events that happened throughout that card, from retirements to just straight up statements made by contenders.
Absolutely. It was a fantastic event. I feel like the main event is getting a little bit more heat than it should have, but that gives us talking points for us to talk about, and that's what we're here for.
It sure does. And also there was some controversy with some fouls to go right into a lot of talking points. And when you have that many big names in the mix, there's going to be a lot of interesting points. And what these people have to look forward to next is very interesting too. I say we go right into all these events. UFC 276, of course, it was in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. And the main event was for the middleweight championship between Israel Adesanya and Jared Kennear. Adesanya wins a unanimous decision. I only gave the third round, I believe it was, to Jared Kennear. He actually was able to start mixing in the clinching. He was obviously the stronger guy in there, but Adesanya had really good technique when it came to the grappling defense. And Jared Kennear, he did better than I thought he would, and he was very good defensively at many points in this fight. The big thing with Jared Kennear that I talked about heading into this fight is the guy's a knockout artist, but you probably wouldn't have known he was much of a knockout artist if you saw this fight. The guy looked to be happy to stay safe and lose the decision, and that ultimately resulted in him not really putting himself in a position to win, because in my opinion, point fighting against Adesanya was a losing formula for Jared Kennear. Jared Kennear needed to go for that knockout and try to land something clean like Gastelum did, but Adesanya, of course, has this aura about him where if you go for it, he'll hit you with that counter strike just like he got Robert Whittaker, and he'll knock you out. That's what I thought we were going to see, but Jared, as I said, did not go for it. You really can't blame him, because Adesanya, he'll bring the heat right back. But yeah, Jared Kennear just didn't have the tools necessary to beat Adesanya on this night. And people can talk about not being entertained about the fight, but you cannot deny that Adesanya is the second best middleweight to ever do it. The guy is like on his 6th or 7th title defense now. The guy's an absolute legend already.
Absolutely agree. And as I was talking about, I feel like the heat of this fight is getting a little bit more heat than it's supposed to be getting. People are saying that Adesanya was boring, had this sort of knife, but as you talked about, Jared Kennear just it takes two to tango, two to make a fight, and I felt like Jared Kennear just didn't come forward enough in this fight. And as you talked about, Adesanya is a counter striker, and for him to get his game going, his opponent's got to put pressure on. And the only time we ever saw that, as you talked about, it was Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Jared Kennear. He's now 38. I don't see him getting another shot. Adesanya, on the other hand, he had a guaranteed challenger coming out of the main card fight between the middleweights, and my goodness, he definitely has it in Alex Pedraza. Of course, scoring a knockout. We'll talk about Strickland's game plan a little bit later, but Adesanya versus Pedraza, that is one hell of a fight. It's actually technically a trilogy in combat sports. Adesanya, he has to get his revenge, and it would be epic for him to get it done on the UFC stage. And if he gets it done by knockout, that would be really impressive as well. So I think Adesanya is in for a very exciting fight next. Like, Alex Pereira is not going to really point fight with him. Like that guy is definitely a knockout artist, and he's going to have more confidence than any opponent Adesanya has ever fought in MMA. The guy's already beat him twice, so he's not going to be scared of him. So I'm very excited for that fight.
Yeah, exactly, and something different that obviously Adesanya's got shut down, and as you talked about, Alex Pereira 2-0 against Adesanya. So what's the mindset? What's that frame of Adesanya going into? Because obviously the man he's facing has beaten him twice and knocked him out before.
Yeah, 100%. That fight is going to be a big fight once it comes around, and I think it could happen as soon as September or October. So, because Adesanya likes to stay active, and he really didn't get touched in this fight. all that much. We'll move on to the co-main event. This, for me, felt like the real main event because the stakes were huge for this fight. Because I know Aldo, he's got the most title defenses in this division, but let's get real. Both of these guys have beaten Aldo already. Holloway has beat him twice and finished him. Like, let's be real. These guys beat a prime Aldo. And Alexander Volkanovski just beat Max Holloway by unanimous decision to retain the belt. Once again, this is the third time he's beaten him by decision. Volkanovski, in his rematch with Holloway in Abu Dhabi, he got woken up by USADA for a piss test, and like it messed up his whole sleep schedule. He even had to take I believe it was like drugs to go to sleep. So his sleep schedule was so messed up, and like he had these delayed reaction times in the fight, and you can see it. The guy got dropped twice in those first 2 rounds, and then he woke up, and then he got to work. So Volkanovski is a true champion for still winning on an off night in that rematch. Now in the third fight, he proved that second fight, that was an off night, man. In this fight, he was way quicker than Holloway. He was way more accurate. Like, everything he was doing was giving Holloway all kinds of problems. Holloway just couldn't really touch him like he usually does. His opponents for Holloway usually stand in front of him, give him, pretty hittable target, but Volkanovski just too quick. And for being the older fighter, that is incredibly impressive. Holloway's only 30. Volkanovski, I believe, is like 33, 34. And he was the quicker guy. And, of course, he was the more powerful guy. Holloway, we never see Holloway do this, but Holloway was forced to go for takedowns. That's how bad it was going for him on the feet. This was a 5-0 shutout by Volkanovski. And I'll be quite honest, this wasn't the most exciting fight either, which is very rare. For Volkanovski to bring an uncompetitive fight out of Holloway is unprecedented.
Absolutely. And this is obviously, as you talked about, not the most entertaining fight. It was just a one fight shot. Alexander Volkanovski probably won every single minute of this fight. It was ridiculous. If you look at him after the fight, you can clearly see the winner. And what is ridiculous here is Alexander Volkanovski is levels above Max Holloway, and Max Holloway is still so good. It just shows how good Volkanovski is. He can do everything. His grappling, his striking. He obviously fought the taller man, the guy with longer reach, but still doesn't bother him. He gets in there, gets inside, makes it dirty, and his striking is ridiculous. It's absolutely incredible. He's probably one of the best that we have in mixed martial arts that can really mix it up and get his full game going.
Yeah, Volkanovski actually did have the reach advantage in this matchup. I know it's deceiving. He actually has a 1.5 reach advantage on Holloway. The guy is in, as I mentioned before, he's physically bigger and he's physically stronger. And of course that allowed him to defend the takedown attempts from Holloway. And also let's talk about that cut in the, I believe it was the second round. Holloway got split right open. That was a very bad cut. It reminded me a lot of the Nate Diaz cut Diaz suffered against Jorge Masvidal back in November of 2019. That was like right there above the eyebrow. Like a doctor really could have stopped that, and I wouldn't have said it was crazy. That was a really bad cut. But of course, Holloway is not going to quit. But it definitely impaired his vision for the rest of the fight. And Volkanovski, of course, he targeted it. He did great work. And Holloway says he's not known for doing damage, Volkanovski. And Volkanovski really inflicted damage on Holloway. So, yeah, I don't know what more you could ask of Volkanovski, because I was thinking he would at least like lose a round, but Volkanovski definitively proved he was better than Max Holloway. And I think this closes the book on this rivalry. And Volkanovski can now call himself the best featherweight to ever fight in the UFC. We'll move on to the next fight between middleweights. Sean Strickland lost via knockout to Alex Pedraza. This was absolutely brutal. Sean Strickland, in the pre-fight press conference, he declares that Pedraza is not a good striker because Strickland trains with lower kickboxing champions and he can stand with them. But that's sparring, man. That's different those guys aren't trying to hit you with those deadly hooks like Alex was throwing. Alex has these big old gorilla hands that can, if they land on anybody, it's pretty much over, man. He's so accurate. He's so quick, even at 35. So Strickland standing right in front of him, flat-footed. That was an awful game plan. One of the worst game plans I can recall in the sport. He had to wrestle to make this competitive, and he did not respect the heat that was coming back from Alex. So, of course, he gets tagged and knocked out. A lot of people are, trashing on me for picking Sean because Sean looked pretty awful in this fight. He got outstruck and then knocked out. But if Sean didn't grapple, he was like a fish out of water almost in this fight. And that's what happened there. Alex, as impressive as ever. And now he's ranked number 6 in this division. And he's in a prime position, obviously, to fight for the belt next against Israel Adesanya. And he's, compared to Adesanya's previous opponents, he's actually not that big of an underdog. So that is 100% the fight to make at middleweight.
Absolutely agree. The rankings came out today, and they put him up number 6. So
yeah,
interesting to see. Obviously, he's still under Paulo Costa, and Paulo Costa hasn't fought for a while. So I thought that was a bit of an interesting choice. But as you talked about, probably next in line. If not, he has to be next in line. I know Dana White was saying whoever wins that fight is next. So Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya, it was all to make it to be a fantastic fight. And I think this fight is obviously going to be more entertaining, obviously, than the one we saw on Saturday, because I think Alex Pereira knows he can win it. Obviously, he's beaten before, and obviously, I think he just knows he's got the talent to beat Adesanya, and it's going to be a fantastic chess match. One I expect to go weirdly. I expect it to go to full scorecard, because I feel like there's maybe just cancel each other out. It's going to be a very tactical fight, and maybe I'm not sure on this one, but it's going to be interesting. But who knows? Adesanya versus Alex Pereira in MMA, it's going to be crazy. And as you talked about, Alex Pereira versus Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland wanting to kickbox a kickboxer. Man. This will probably be one of the fights that he will look back on and probably regret in his MMA career.
Yeah, Pereira is like, if he would win the belt, he would be one of the most vulnerable champions in UFC history. The guy's ground game is far from good. He's not that bad defensively, but my goodness, if you put a Derek Brunson in there with him, a Jack Hermanson, he would look awful. So that would be that would be super interesting if the guy would be the champion, and we would have a ton of contenders that we know for a fact could beat him. So I think middleweight.
Everybody's such a weird sport. Alex Pereira could go out and knock out Adesanya, and then probably lose to Marvin Vettori.
Yeah, 100%. Robert Whittaker, and like the amount of top 15 guys that would mop the floor with Alex is actually crazy. But hey, that's a super interesting storyline with Adesanya, so it does make sense to book that fight. We'll move on to the fight of the night, as we predicted. Robbie Lawler losing via knockout to Bryan Barberena in the second round. The durability of these guys, that was really what this fight came down to. Who could take more damage? And it appeared that Bryan Barberena was a more durable guy on this night. Robbie Lawler in that first round was getting hit with a ton of strikes from Bryan. Bryan wasn't throwing at full force. He reminded me of the Nick Diaz fight, or Robbie Lawler just bobbing and weaving, trying to avoid the strikes, but he was still getting, hit with them. But it was more of a pitter-pattering from Bryan. But Bryan fought at a crazy pace, and I knew once they started fighting at that pace that somebody would eventually break, and eventually was Robbie Lawler that had to succumb to the damage. Bryan Barberena landed a huge right hand and big elbows, and Robbie Lawler was just dazed and confused up against the cage. That was a really good stoppage by the referee. I feel like Robbie would have dropped soon thereafter had he not stepped in. Bryan Barberena is a straight-up savage. He's a fighter's fighter, and he's one of those guys that, he's not even all that old, not even 30 fights deep in the UFC or anything like that, but I feel like with the damage he's taken, it feels like he's in a Legends spot, if you know what I mean. Just put him in there with fun fighters, and let's see the fireworks in the sky when those guys fight. So as for Bryan Barberena, you can match him up with pretty much anybody you want. You can match him with Andre Fialho, Nico Price, anybody. He'll put on a barn burner.
Absolutely. Never in a dull fight. Fought some of the best in the world up there in the top 5, top 3. Vicente Luque back in the day, what a fantastic fight. They had 2 fights. Randy Brown, honestly, he's had some absolutely fantastic fights, and obviously another one to put in his resume against Robbie Lawler, and obviously got the win as well. So that's good for him. 2 back-to-back for Brian Barberena, and obviously Robbie Lawler falling back to a defeat. I was hoping Robbie Lawler picked up some momentum. And maybe, not had another run at the title, but had like had a good run to maybe send off his career. I feel like obviously he's at the tail end of his career. I think we might be seeing the decline. Obviously, we're seeing the decline of Robbie Lawler, but I feel like we might be seeing the last few stages of Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, I've been lobbying for Robbie to fight Tim Means for a while now. I followed the podcast on to the next one on the MMA Fighting Podcast Network. And those guys there all want to see Tim Means versus Robbie Lawler, because we know for a fact that those guys they're in a similar spot in their career, and it would be so much fun to watch. They have a similar style, so I say that's a fight to book for Robbie. And for Brian Barberena, go ahead and put him there with Ian Machado Gary if you want. That would be very interesting too. Now let's move on to the opener of the card. Super controversial. Pedro Munhoz. He got poked in the eye in the second round against Sean O'Malley, and he declares that he cannot see out of the eye. He can't open it. I believe like a day later, still had an eye closed, but was it the right eye that was closed? Not entirely sure. Sean O'Malley in the first round, he did land a punch to the. I'm not 100% sure which side it was, but he did land a punch to the eye. It did bother Pedro Munhoz. But the big story of the first round was not that eye. It was actually Pedro Munhoz outstriking Sean O'Malley with the leg kicks. And I thought maybe if Pedro landed too many of those, Sean would have some issues, but he did not. Sean proved that his legs are just fine. And I scored the first round for Pedro, as did 2 out of 3 judges. So Pedro has won round on Sean. And then in round 2, Galactus in the chat says Cejudo legit KO's Volk. I just don't see that. Henry Cejudo, I know he was like a power guy in some fights, like a bantamweight, knocked out TJ Dillashaw, but like against Marlon Moraes, it took him like till the 3rd round of a cumulative ground and pound to finish that fight. Same thing in at flyweight. The guy, people forget that the guy was like a flyweight. He's a career flyweight. Cejudo, he's got to go to bantamweight. That featherweight talk with Cejudo is ridiculous in my eyes. Yeah, but as for this fight, Sean O'Malley, he was doing a little better in that round 2. In fact, he did outstrike Pedro in round 2, the little bit of the round that there was. And eventually the eye poke happens, and Pedro declares he can't see. The fight is called off. I 100% believe that the eye poke happened, and that Pedro, of course, had a scratch cornea. There's medical evidence of it. Galactus in the chat says, people have said I don't see it in Cejudo's last fights. As for Cejudo, like, I feel like he's gotten somewhat favorable matchups in his last couple ones. He fought a Dominic Cruz who was like 37 off a long layoff. The Marlon Moraes fight, we know Marlon after round 1 tends to, not be all that good. Yeah, for Cejudo, there's a lot of question marks, but who knows? He can end up fighting Sean O'Malley for all we know. It's a big question mark where the guy's going to be at next. But it's also a question mark with Pedro Munhoz's eye. So he had an abrasion of the right cornea. But on Instagram, there was a video of him, and if you look, the eye that he has closed is his left eye. So I don't know what the hell's going on here. Can you give me some insight into this, Lenny? What do you think's going on here?
Absolutely not. It's all up in the air, isn't it? So, as you talked about, different eyes, videos, and to be honest, and also he posted that what was that medical note onto his Instagram.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I'm not too sure what's going on, but all I know is that Pedro Munhoz won that first round, and I truly believe if the fight was going to continue, I think it was going to go the similar way. So, the leg kicks, the striking. I don't know what it was. In distance, Pedro Munhoz just seemed to get the better of Sean O'Malley, and people saying that he took the easy way out or tried to get a DQ or win or anything like that, I think they're a little bit delusional.
Yeah, and I think those people, I would say 80% of them are casual fans that just tuned in to watch Sean O'Malley, and they have no idea who Pedro is. Pedro, I would probably label him the toughest guy in this whole division. The guy has never said no to a fight. He has fought 5 champions in his last 5 fights, including Cody Garbrandt and Jose Aldo, who are some of the hardest hitters in the history of this division. And if you think Sean O'Malley's punches made this guy quit, I think you're crazy. You don't know who Pedro is. Like, if you know who Pedro is, you're not seeing this guy wander away out. Joe Rogan on the broadcast said that Pedro was looking for a DQ. I actually think that he was looking for a point deduction, because he was saying that was twice. He said that was twice now. I thought he was looking for a point deduction, in my opinion. And I actually think Sean would have won the fight had it gotten a decision for what that is worth. I felt like he started slow and he was picking up speed. Galactus in the chat says, before Cejudo, Marlon was knocking out everyone for a decade. He was a monster. Cejudo ruined him. I do agree with that. That was a bad beating he took. It was so bad heading into the 3rd round. His coach said, think about your mother in the favela. Like, he was trying to bring the last ounce of motivation out of Marlon. That definitely did some psychological damage to him moving forward. And that the ground and pound he took was heavy. So yeah, after that he was not the same guy. Now let's move on to the prelims. And in my opinion, you can make a case that the prelims were like almost more entertaining than the main card. At lightweight, we had Brad Riddell taking on Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner, I know he was the favorite heading to the fight. I thought he was a little overhyped. I'm done saying this guy's overhyped. This guy is an animal, man. He tags Brad Riddell with the first punch he throws, and then he tags him again. And Brad, he did what he did in the Drew Dober fight. When he got tagged, he panic wrestled. And Drew, he's not a real submission threat. So of course, Brad Riddell could do well there, but not against Jalen Turner with those super long limbs and that jiu-jitsu background he's got. He's got a nasty guillotine, and as soon as he put it on Brad Riddell, and then he got the mount, I knew it was done. Jalen Turner got a finish in 45 seconds over a ranked lightweight. That is pretty much impossible to do. I can't even think of the last time it happened.
Absolutely not. It was a fantastic performance. That's 5 back-to-back wins for Jalen Turner. And obviously the best one as of date. He lost against Matt Frivola, lost against Vicente Luque. But if you look at now, it looks like he's in a really good spot in his career. 5 back-to-back. I'm not too sure off the top of my head if he went into the rankings, but he beat number 15, so probably arguably could get into that top 15.
Yeah, 100%. He should get in the rankings. I believe he's already in, actually. Jalen Turner, this was a statement victory he needed. I know the Jamie Malarkey win was good, but Jamie's really hittable, so I wasn't all that impressed. In fact, he lost to Matt Frivola back in the day. Matt Frivola, I think he's if you would ask me to rank Matt Frivola, I would put him at number 41, maybe. He's not that top tier, and he was able to beat Jalen Turner. But I think Jalen Turner's just a different fighter now, more confident. He's finishing everybody pretty much. And he said that what changed was he's now fighting to his advantages. And it's very clear he's now staying a little more at distance, and he's sniping guys, and then he can hop on and get a submission. Jalen Turner is a menace in this division. Galactus has, by the way, great channel, guys, good production. Start doing really well soon. Should start doing really well soon. Cheers. Thank you, Galactus. We appreciate any support we get from this production. This is really something that is a passion project of ours. We really like doing this. As for Jalen Turner, I think you got to give this guy a grappler next, because I know he can look really good against these short and stocky or strikers. If you put him in there with Michael Chandler right now, I'm telling you, he destroys Michael Chandler. But if you put him in there with an Arman Sarukian, Mateusz Gamrot, it's a different story. So I need Jalen to prove me that he can beat a high-level grappler. So I say put him in there with Arman Sarukian if he's really about it.
Yeah, Norman just coming off the back of a tough defeat against Gamrot. So that'd be a good one. And obviously the physique of Jalen Turner at 155 pounds, it's honestly ridiculous. How long is they call him a tarantula for the reason, and he put it on full display. So it was a fantastic performance. Jalen Turner, man, he definitely can go places, top 10, and I feel like this win here against Brad Riddell is definitely the start. But as you talked about, so probably a grappling match up next is probably the wise move if I was the UFC, just to test it. And if he passes that, then bloody hell, we got to be on the train.
Yeah, Jalen Turner. Yeah, he's really proven to himself now with his entire skill set. Move on to the welterweight fight between Jim Miller and Donald Cowboy Cerrone. This was a sad one, folks. Jim Miller in that first round, he was actually struggling a bit with Donald in the kickboxing realm. Donald actually, he managed not to get caught, which is kind of new for him in his last couple fights. And then Jim Miller takes it to the ground. He gets some good ground and pound going. You could probably give that round to Jim. And in the second round, Donald is doing well kickboxing once again. Lands a head kick on Jim Miller, the biggest strike of the fight. But he slipped and he lost his balance. Gets caught in the guillotine. Jim mounts him. Donald turns beet red. He taps. And that right there was the end of the Donald Cerrone career. It's sad, man. He was able to destroy Jim Miller back in the day, but now he's not motivated. He said he doesn't love it anymore, and I really wish I could have put my bias to the side picking this fight because all the signs pointed to a Jim Miller finish here. But I just had to be a fanboy and go for Cowboy. But yeah, now he won't screw me over on the pick side anymore. Now he's going to be doing whatever he wants in the film industry, and I wish him the best. But yeah, if you want to talk about UFC / WC careers, there's not many better than Donald. Like, very few guys have that kind of moments, that many bonuses, the second most wins in the history of the promotion. To say he's a legend is an understatement.
Absolutely, a future Hall of Famer for sure. Going to be inducted one day, and it was just sad to see him go out like this. As he talked about that head kick, he wasn't in real trouble. It's just Jim Miller, which is a fantastic, caught the kick and obviously gave up the back. And if you're giving up the back, and obviously sorry, not giving up the back, if you up a choke to your neck and to Jim Miller, who's fantastic at that guillotine choke, your night's going to be over and it's going to be over quick. But Jim Miller did a fantastic job and signed a new 4-fight deal as well. You thought it was about legends. Jim Miller still going strong. And obviously Donald Cerrone letting it go. This is probably his last MMA fight, but I feel like this probably not the last time we see in the MMA. Probably, hopefully we see him corner some guys, get some coaching experience because he's got a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, wherever Donald does, he said he still wants to hang out at the PI, but he doesn't want to train for a fight. I think Donald is one of those guys that's going to recreationally kickbox like Michael Bisping and some of those other guys. He'll still keep his tools sharp, but he says he wants to get that Thor from Endgame type belly, and I think that's a real possibility. The way Donald Cerrone likes to live his life, he likes to live life on the edge, and now he can have that side relief, and I don't have to stress about a fight because the guy's always been very open about dealing with pre-fight anxiety. So yeah, very happy he can enjoy his life now. And move on to the welterweight fight between Iain, the future Gary, and Gabe Gifted Green. This was one hell of a scrap. Gabe Green was, he's the guy that Iain Gary likes to fight. He's the guy that walks forward, doesn't have a ton of head movement, and in terms of grappling, not super threatening. And Iain Gary did what I thought he would do here, but get the finish. He did get that knockdown in the third round, but yeah. Gabe Green did give him a tough fight, but once Gary got his timing, once he got in a flow state, he was able to hit Gabe Green with whatever he wanted, and he looked damn good out there. Looking sharp. He trains at Sanford MMA with the likes of Gilbert Burns, Kamal Usman, Robbie Lawler. He's getting good working. Still young, and he's the future of this welterweight division. Not a guy you're going to see in the top 10, but he's going to be one of those guys that will be, sticking around a long time.
Yeah, I talked about before the show last week. I need a performance that I can put confidence in Gary, and I'm still looking for it. If I'm going to be honest, it was a good performance. He done well, did what he needed to do to win. But I kind of need to see these sort of finishing performances where he knocks these guys out and he makes a real statement. Yes, he got the job done. He's still perfect, but to be honest, I don't think there's any real statement there for me. It seemed like he just got the job done, and he did whatever he needed to do to get the win. Nonetheless, it was a good performance, but I just need that statement. I need that statement to win make me think, wow, maybe this guy is the future. I just feel like there's going to be a time where he's going to get caught up. He's going to fight the wrong guy, etc.
Yeah, but the UFC's been very intelligent in their matchmaking with him. They haven't put him in there with, like, say, a Jake Matthews, with, like, let me give you another example, like, who would be, like, Gunnar Nelson.
Even though Anjos Fiala comes forward, walks, but I feel like probably a dangerous matchup as well.
Yeah, they're training partners, so that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. When you talked about Sanford as well, Sanford just changed their name.
They did?
Yeah, I think they called it Kill Cuts.
Wow, really? They used to be the Black Azilians back in the day, run by Rashad Evans. Yeah. Well, that's really weird. That's news to me. But
Option Tap MMA rebranded to Kill Cliff FC.
Kill Cliff FC.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird. Nonetheless, that gym is full of killers. If you want to get better at striking, you go to that gym, pretty much, in this nation. That's what Ian Gary's been doing, getting tons of good work in there. He used to be at SBG Ireland, but he moved to the States, and now he's settled down in the States, and he even added Machado to his name. Don't forget the Machado, ladies and gentlemen. Brad Tavares lost to Dricus du Plessis in the next fight at a middleweight. And du Plessis, he's been a knockout artist. He's really been going for it, but Brad was just too tough on this night. Brad in the first round was able to tag du Plessis, get a takedown. He looked good in that first round, but du Plessis, once he got going in that second round, he bloodied Brad Tavares, was able to hurt him. But I feel like du Plessis was like a little too tired to be able to really exert the energy that was necessary to put away Brad. But these guys stood and banged it out, had one hell of a war. I thought these guys would get fight of the night before Robbie and Brian Barberina happened. Excellent fight. Dricus du Plessis proved he can go a hard 5 rounds with a UFC level talent. Brad Tavares. Brad Tavares is staple of the middleweight division, and now Dricus du Plessis has entered the rankings. I think he's prime for a Kelvin Gastelum fight now.
Absolutely. If you look at the type of fighters that have gone to Brad Tavares, Edmund Shabazian, Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, they've all gone to the top. Well, Edmund not as much, but they've reached the top. Yoel Romero, they've got to the top of the division. So it kind of seems to get to the top of the middleweight division, you've got to go through these guys like Brad Tavares, Uriah Hall, as you talked about, a fantastic matchup in the future. With DDP, and I'd definitely like to see, maybe a top 10, not top 15 matchup. I think I talked about him last week, and I said I need to see that statement performance. And the first round was a little bit tricky, but the second and the third round, he definitely came through, and it was a good performance. He hits like an absolute truck. For a kickboxer, he's very unorthodox, but it seems to work.
Yeah, and he definitely displayed hard in this fight. He looked like so tired, like he was gonna faint at points in this fight, but he still fought through it. The guy's a warrior. I feel like he would definitely need to work on his cardiovascular endurance before going into a 5-rounder. But yeah, he still can improve on some things and be a real threat in this division. We'll move on to another middleweight prospect. Andre Munhoz dominated Uriah Hall for 3 rounds, 30-27 across the board to win a unanimous decision. Andre Munhoz is a menace in this division. On the feet, he actually did well for himself against Uriah Hall, because the thing with Uriah, the big knock on him, the guy does not go for it oftentimes. Very gun-shy, constantly told by his cornerman, hey, we need some more volume, hey, we need some more activity. Doesn't really listen to him. The guy's not a great minute winner. He's more of a knockout artist and a comeback king, but Andre Munhoz was not there to be hit on this night. On the feet, as I said, did not get tagged, and then he gets takedowns. He gets the back, But the problem with Andre, just very big on his arm bars, and he was able to get the armbar on Jacare and Eryk, but Uriah Hall, he knew it was coming, and Uriah Hall's not gonna try to transition because his grappling offensively is really nothing special. He's actually a blue belt, so Andre Munhoz was unable to get those submissions. Uriah Hall, of course, trained a ton of submission defense, but that's a problem. All he did was defend this whole fight. And when you're just defending and the other guy's being the better offensive fighter, you're going to lose that fight. Uriah Hall simply had nothing for him. And I didn't sense any urgency from him either. This was an easy fight to score. Complete domination for Andre Munhoz. And I think Andre will be able to do this to a ton of guys in the top 10 now. I say the next fight for him should be the gatekeeper of the division, blonde Derek Brunson.
Who did you pick in this fight? I can't remember.
I picked Munhoz. Yeah, I picked Munhoz to get a first round submission, but I said Uriah Hall will knock him out if it stays striking. But of course, it didn't stay striking.
Yeah, which one was the told you so fight of the week? I can't.
The told you so, was it I versus Barber? Because I know I picked Jessica
I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, but anyway, Andre Munhoz put on a fantastic performance. Ranked number 10 in middleweight now, and he talked about some definitely good matchups in front of him. Derek Brunson, Sean Strickland also fought in the card, so maybe that, and Jared Cannonier. But I'd like to see him against a grappler who would be able to obviously talk. Have you talked about Derek Brunson's a fantastic grappler?
Yeah.
Because I want to see how he looks when he gets tested with his striking and when he can't get his grappling going. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Of course, he fought basically the top tier grapplers already in who was it? Jacare Souza. Down the line, how about we do Andre Munhoz versus Adolfo Vieira at some point? I gotta see that, because can you imagine if we see a ton of grappling from those guys? That'd be interesting. And I know for a fact that Munhoz is bad at cardio, so very interesting. Moving on to the next fight. I guess we can call this one the told you so fight of the week because we were on opposite sides. I picked Jessica I to win by decision, and she didn't look awful this fight. She did look awful to start, but when she got going, she did pretty well for herself. But in that first round, it was more the same from Barbara's first fight. I mean, her last fight with Montana De La Rosa. She had a ton of success in the clinch. I was actually looking a little strong there for a second, but once Barbara pinned her up against the cage, she landed some vicious elbows, opened up some nasty cuts on I. She got a hematoma like above her eyebrow. It was not looking good for her. It was a clear Barbara round in the first round, but the second round was a little dicey. That was a little dicey there. I started being able to outpower Barbara a little more, have a little more success. But that was another round you could have given to Barber too. The third round also very close. I believe that was the round where I got the takedown, but didn't really do much damage with it. Barber, what surprised me here is that she was unable to control I a ton here. I got 8 minutes of control in this fight. Barber couldn't even get 2 minutes. So Barber definitely had to lean more on her offensive striking, and of course it was more effective than I. I think if I was the I that was coming up in this division trying to get a title shot, she would have won this fight. But heading into this fight, she was happy retiring. Of course, she's already started herself an adult entertainment site, so of course she's doing well for herself on that end. So she doesn't have a big incentive to keep on fighting, and she ended her career right then and there. Of course, overshadowed by Dawn Cerrone, but nonetheless, she's one of the pioneers of the flyweight division. And Barber, of course, is the future. So, this is just how the sport goes. You go out on your back.
Absolutely, and I wasn't shy in the post-fight interview. She's already shooting her shots to where she wants to go next, and she's going to stay. She said she doesn't like the. Obviously, she wants to stay active, and she wants to stay active pro wrestling. She said she likes pro wrestling, so she's called for AEW and WWE. So maybe they will give her a shot. I know there was another MMA star this week to announce that they signed for WWE. That was Valerie Loredo.
The first American woman to sign with the WWE. Yeah, I honestly didn't see that coming. But yeah, she'll do very well over there. I really think she's going to be a future women's champion. The Vince McMahon respects MMA a whole ton. Of course, he made Brock Lesnar like one of the most powerful wrestlers ever. Cain Velasquez went right into the title mix when he got in there. So yeah, the MMA fighters have done really well. Also, Bobby Lashley is the United States champion right now. So yeah, the MMA fighters, they always do well in the WWE.
Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, Shayna Baszler. Yeah, Jessamine Duke. Yeah, a ton of MMA fighters, and Vince McMahon was actually front row for Adesanya's entrance, and one hell of an entrance it was, the Undertaker entrance. We completely skipped over that. That was one of the best entrances in the history of the UFC, in my opinion. It only would have been better if Adesanya had gotten the knockout. I felt like it was kind of, it kind of didn't go over well after he didn't get the knockout, because when you come out with a guy's name on an urn, you kind of got to knock him out, don't you?
Exactly. He put on a dominant performance, but when you come out with that, you bring him with confidence. So the knockouts really would have topped it off. But going back to Loretta, I think the WWE, I think it suits her more than MMA. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, and obviously, she it didn't appear that she was that developed as a fighter anyway, and the years it would take to develop probably would, she wouldn't have made as much money in the WWE, honestly. So we'll move on to the next fight between Jessica Rose Clark and Julia Stollenko. On this show, I picked Jessica Rose Clark, but I say it every week, guys. I am very open-minded. If I hear the right thing about the other fighter, I'll go ahead and pick them. And that's what I did. Julia Stollenko. I look back at her fight with Julia Avila. She actually did well for herself on the feet. So I said, I cannot trust Jessica Rose Clark. Even if this goes 15 minutes just striking, we could just see something crazy with Julia, and she could get a decision. But at the end of the day, Jessica Rose Clark lost via armbar in her last fight to a judoka. She was fighting another judoka who only wins by armbar, really. So in the first round, Jessica Rose Clark, she was able to drop Julia like to a knee, and then Julia was able to get herself a takedown, and it looked like a UFC 4 fight between an experienced player and an inexperienced player. A lot of people already know how to strike in the UFC games, but with the UFC 4 game, they changed the submission like controls and the buttons you have to press and whatnot. And if you don't know it, you're going to get like tapped right away. And it looked like Jessica Rose Clark didn't know what she was doing on the ground. And she got submitted pretty much immediately. And this fight was over in 42 seconds. This is the second quickest women's bantamweight finish in history. Of course, the quickest was Amanda Nunes versus Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey got demolished. And Jessica Rose's arm got demolished as well. Julia Stollenko is not to be underestimated. And she was by a lot of people. Can't believe she was, a sizable underdog.
Absolutely, our first win inside the UFC after 3 back-to-back losses. But it was a good win against Jessica Rose Clark. It seems like the UFC really didn't want Jessica Rose Clark to get momentum going. 2 back-to-back judokas, 2 armbars back-to-back, and now she needs an elbow surgery. So interesting to see where she goes from here. But as we talked about, Stollenko getting her first win inside the UFC, so happy for her on the season 28 final, season 28 season of the Tough. She was on. But yeah, so after that, she came back and then she fought Yana Gungetskaya in her debut. Julia Avila talks about Alexis Darius and obviously getting the win against Jessica Rose Clark. So happy for her to get the first win inside the UFC. Jessica Rose Clark just probably needs to top up on that grappling defense. Maybe go work with these girls that have beat her. See where she goes wrong. Just tighten up a little bit. Yeah,
because she looked damn awful in her last 2 fights in terms of submission defense. Maybe it was just her performance anxiety, but yeah, the defensive technique was simply not there. But that was a very violent way to kick off the card, man. That gave it all the momentum it needed to be a solid event. I know it didn't live up to our expectations because our expectations were sky high, but it was still a fun event, and it's going to be an event that has some moments that we're going to be talking about for for the next couple of years. Honestly, the Alex Pereira knockout, well, that's definitely an entrance you want, and of course, Adasanya, walkout with the Undertaker. A lot of cool moments there all around. Of course, Donald Cerrone retiring was a huge moment. We thought the guy was going to get to 50 fights under the Zuffa banner. It just didn't happen. But yeah, a lot of crazy moments. And I think this weekend will provide an equal amount of crazy moments. UFC
Absolutely.
Vegas, I believe, is 58. It is the battle of the Rafaels. That is going to be one hell of a event. Rafael dos Anjos, the former lightweight champion, is taking on Rafael Fiziev. This should be a fun one. This is your classic veteran versus prospect fight, and I'm taking the veteran in this fight. Rafael dos Anjos, of course, he won his lightweight championship by defeating Anthony Pettis back in 2015, I believe it was 2016, and he completely dominated Pettis, was able to take him down at will. He's been able to do that to a lot of guys in the UFC. And Rafael Fiziev, on the other hand, he does have a Sambo background, also has fantastic kickboxing, but the thing with him is those third rounds for him are not all that impressive. I know I'm saying that, and in his last fight, he fought Brad Riddell and finished him with a wheel kick in the third round. But if you look before that, the Bobby Green fight, Bobby Green was piecing this guy up in that third round. That round was clear as day for Bobby Green. Fiziev, he does have very high output, but once you get to the third round, it's not all that good for him. And as I just mentioned, Rafael dos Anjos is a guy that excels in the championship rounds. The last time he was in a 5-rounder, he fought Renato Moicano. That was his last fight. And that was a co-main event on a pay-per-view, and he destroyed Renato. My goodness, one of the worst beatings like I can recall. The first 3 rounds are clear as day for him, and I believe it was the 3rd or 4th round. I'll say 4th round it was. Dos Anjos lands a vicious head kick, drops Moicano. He's landing the ground and pound to finish the fight. But Moicano's just too tough. Wasn't able to put him away. Moicano basically should have, the doctor probably should have stopped that fight. He took an incredible amount of damage. And then Dos Anjos, of course, doesn't have really the heart to go after him in the 5th round. And he actually probably lost that 5th round. He got tagged a couple times, but that was just, a weird circumstance there. But Fiziev, on the other hand, I think Fiziev will give Dos Anjos everything he can handle on the feet. I think Dos Anjos probably will be on wobbly legs once or twice in this fight, but here's the thing. Dos Anjos, of course, has proven to be tough before. He's fought in heavy hitters in the past and done well for himself. I think Dos Anjos will be able to get a submission in the 4th round of this fight. I think it'll be a bit similar to the Kevin Lee fight. I'll say arm triangle, he gets it here. Kevin Lee was a little gassed there with all that grappling. Fiziev, also with the Brad Riddell fight, he wasn't tired. No grappling in that fight. So I think Dos Anjos has the recipe to wear out Fiziev over the fight and eventually submit him. I think Dos Anjos is being disrespected, being an underdog heading to this fight. I think he's a bona fide Hall of Famer. And just too tough for Fiziev, too experienced for him. I think Dos Anjos is definitely the right pick here. Do you agree?
Absolutely, I agree. I was literally sending my picks to you right now to make it seem like we don't have the same sort of picks. But yeah, I choose RDA in this one. And the reason is obviously more experienced, has that that main event experience, and he talks about Rafael Fiziev throws everything into every shot he has, and when it comes to that 3rd and the 4th round, I think that's where he's going to wear down, and I think that's where RDA is going to take over. I think the grappling here is going to be the massive key in this fight, and it's going to come from RDA. I sense either an arm triangle win, a submission win. I sense a submission win from RDA, but I definitely like that arm triangle. But we're going to see the first few rounds, maybe Fiziev getting the better of RDA, but then when it gets to the later rounds, as you talked about, RDA taking over, getting that grappling working, and eventually get a submission win. I do believe. I think the veteranness, the experience of RDA is going to truly prevail on this Saturday.
Yeah, and who's the best guy that Fizie's beat? I would say it's Brad Riddell. Brad Riddell, of course, just lost this past weekend, but Brad Riddell, I know he's a solid wrestler, but not he doesn't really threaten much in terms of grappling, and there was really no grappling in that fight. Bobby Green, of course, is a solid wrestler, didn't wrestle in that fight. Moicano, fantastic grappler, but Moicano fell in love with his hands, only struck with Fiziev, got knocked out. So we seen this guy testing in the grappling realm? No. And Dos Anjos is about as established as it gets in the grappling realm. I know he got dominated by Habib back in there, but that's Habib. This guy Dos Anjos, he's gonna put Fiziev in some spots he's never been in, and I'm gonna trust the UFC vet over the prospect right now. If Fiziev doesn't even have 15 pro fights, Dos Anjos has himself 43 pro fights. I'm gonna side with the more experienced guy. If you look at the last time he fought like a Muay Thai fighter like Fiziev, it was Paul Felder, and he beat him by split decision. That was not a split decision. That was domination from Dos Anjos. Got a lot of clinch control time. Pretty much dominated that fight. Fiziev will win. I'll say Fiziev wins rounds 1 and 2 via striking, more damaging strikes. But as I said, he'll be tired. That's what I'm banking on. And Dos Anjos will be able to get that submission or win a decision. So we'll move on now to the co-main event. The co-main event is between Caio Borralho and Armen Petrosian. While I wait for Lenny, I'll break down this fight for you guys. This is going to be a banger between Caio and Armen. Armen Petrosian is a fantastic kickboxer, a very powerful guy. He's got very powerful punches and kicks. Caio Borralho, on the other hand, is a super well-rounded fighter, but I would say his greatest strength is his high-level jiu-jitsu. The guy trained with Damian Maia for a very long time, and the guy can hang wherever you want him to on the ground. In his last fight, he fought an undefeated Dagestani wrestler, and he goes out there, takes his back in every round, and on the feet beats him up. This guy's an absolute menace, and I don't think he's hyped enough. This guy will be a top 15 guy, top 10 guy, maybe even challenge for a belt. That's how high I am on this guy. And he's got real pop on his punches, too. So there's nowhere in this fight where he's going to be outclassed. Armen Petrosian, he showed somewhat decent submission defense against Gregory Robocop Rodriguez in his last fight. I actually thought that you could have scored that fight for Gregory. Petrosian was on wobbly legs multiple times, particularly in the third round. He got hit with a front kick, and then he got put in a Soloev stretch. But Gregory was just too tired to finish the submission. I think if he had more gas left in the tank, he would have finished him. But Petrosian definitely put a pace on him and was able to win that fight. Petrosian, I really like his style, but in terms of the ground game, he's outclassed in this fight. Gregory Robocop Rodriguez, he has fallen in love with his striking, even though he's a jiu-jitsu champion. Caio Borralho is a guy that's very smart. He knows how to win fights, and he's not going to fight the same way in every fight. On the Contender Series, he fought Aaron Jeffrey. He goes out there, stuffs the takedowns, beats him up on the feet, and then in his second Contender Series fight, he goes in there, stings and bangs with a light heavyweight and knocks him out in a minute. So he's not always fighting the same way. And then UFC debut, he goes and takes a grappling approach. So I think he fights smart in his fight against Armen, and I think he gets a second round submission, rear naked choke.
Absolutely agree with you. We talked about how good this guy is, and I'm fully on the hype train. He's absolutely phenomenal. His grappling is amazing. His striking is getting better as well as fights go on. And I truly believe that, as you talked about, I definitely see him in the top 10, top 15 one day. But yeah, he's got to get past Armen Petrosian, and I think he'll do it with relative ease. In the first round, I think he's going to take him down at will. And I think we're just going to see submission win in that first round. And Caio Borralho is just going to make it his night on this Saturday. Petrosian as well is a good fighter. That one loss, it does come to a knockout loss. I can't remember who to, but as I talked about, Borralho is just phenomenal. His striking, his grappling, everything he does, he mixes it up so well. This is just another step on his way to the top 10, top 15, and Petrosian, unfortunately, has to be in his way.
Yeah, I really think Ohio is going to be on a rampage, and not a lot of guys can stop him.
Absolutely
We'll move
agree.
on now.
We'll move on to Said Nurmagomedov versus Silva de Andrade. Said Nurmagomedov, he's a prospect. He's got good potential, but will he get the win this Saturday?
I think Said Nurmagomedov is one of the more safe picks on this entire card, especially betting wise. Douglas Silva de Andrade is a powerful striker. He's basically, you see the guy, he looks like John Lineker, kind of fights like John Lineker. He's got a short reach. He's very short and stocky, but he's super powerful. You do not want to be on the wrong end of one of his hooks. And Sergey Morozov, he really went through in his last fight. In fact, Douglas Silva de Andrade in that first round looked awful. He got hurt bad. It looked like he was about to get knocked out. He had this big old cut over him. I thought they were about to stop it in between rounds, but somehow he makes it out of there. He actually looked tired too. I can't believe he made that comeback. He was able to tag Morozov, drop him twice, and then he does something that he really never does. He goes ahead and he takes the back and he submits Sergey Morozov. Morozov was just broken at that point. Douglas Silva de Andrade is coming off a fight where he lost to 10-8 in the first round. And now he's fighting against Said Nurmagomedov, who is a big guy for the weight class. He's at a reach disadvantage and a height disadvantage. I'd say Said is definitely more technical than Sergey Morozov, but he's not as good as a grappler. But here's the thing with Douglas Silva de Andrade. He's not a guy that really goes for takedowns. He goes for a takedown here and there. He did take down Lerone Murphy. He did take down Sergey Morozov, but he's always been a guy to take the striking approach because he's got a lot of confidence in his knockout power. With Said, we've never really seen any chinks in the armor. After the Ione Barcelos fight, that was a fight where Ione, of course, was a powerful guy too, but he was a guy that's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he will go for takedowns, and that's how Said lost that fight. But Douglas won't go for this takedowns, so he's going to have to stand with Said, and that is bad news. Said has a lot of finishes. He was able to finish Mark Striegel like in a minute. So I think Said is a real problem. And also, if you ask me who is more likely to get a submission here, I think it's Said. I think Said could drop Douglas Silva de Andrade, and then we see Douglas go for a takedown, and Said could do what he did in his last fight against Cody Stamann, get a guillotine. He's got a nasty guillotine on him when he fought Cody Stamann. Stamann is not all that easy to submit, and he was able to do it in a minute. So I will definitely take Said Nurmagomedov. By the way, for anybody who's asking, he's not related to Habib, but man, he's definitely doing good things for the Nurmagomedov name. The guy's a very high level fighter. He's in the top 15 in the bantamweight division, and he'll continue his rise, beating the tough and durable Silva de Andrade, who he's only lost to really good fighters like Zabir Tahugov. Actually, he has a win over Marlon Vera. He lost to Petr Yan as well. But yeah, Douglas, I know he's not a guy you want to bet against all that much, but with Said, he's definitely a guy you do want to bet on. So yeah, I'll take Said I'll say by decision, but he could definitely get himself a finish.
Absolutely agree. I think Said Nurmagomedov is a fantastic prospect in the bantamweight division. Bantamweight is absolutely stacked. If you look at his sole loss inside the UFC was against Ronnie Barcelos. Other than that, he's perfect. Beat Ricardo Ramos, Justin Scoggins, Mark Stiegel, and obviously Cody Stamann in his last one. And then if you look at most three of them by finish, one of them by decision, the other is lost as well. That was by decision. So he's got that finishing instinct, and I think it will continue this Saturday versus Douglas Silva de Andrade. But where I see it happening most is striking. I think Said is definitely the better striker. And we've seen Douglas Silva Andrade, he quit on the corner when it was against Petr Yan. Petr Yan, and he just didn't come out. He also got something against Rob Font, and also lost against Lerone Murphy, but that was more of a striker matchup. So.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, Rob Font was able to submit him. I think Said will be able to. Now I'm taking Said by second round submission. You talked me into it.
Well, my pick was going to go either decision or knockout win for Said. I think that's where it's going to be. I think the submission win, obviously Rob Font will be able to submit him, but I'm not sure. I think maybe Silva Andrade might be able to just stay out of trouble for the 15 minutes. But striking wise, I do not see him staying out of trouble. I think he's either going to get knocked out or it's going to get a decision.
Yeah. And Douglas Andrade is not a guy that's going to point fight. Of course, he's always going to be looking for that knockout. So I think Said will make him pay. Move on to the next fight at heavyweight. Jared Vanderaa taking on Chase Sherman. The fact that Chase Sherman is on this roster is insane. The guy, he got cut off a 4-fight losing streak. The guy got caught by USADA in his first UFC fight, and then he got brought back just to get squashed by Alexander Romanov. And I thought he would have been cut after that one for sure, right? But he's still in there, and he's fighting a very formidable heavyweight, Jared Vanderaa. I know Jared, he lost his last fight to Alexei Oleinik, but once you get in that position with Alexei, it ain't good news for you for pretty much anybody. And before that, he fought Andrei Arlovski, another legend, former heavyweight champion, and he lost a split decision. I scored that fight for Jared. Jared outstruck him. He got clinch control time. I didn't see any like super damaging strike from Arlovski that would make me score it for Andre. So Jared is a guy that can fight a full 15 minutes comfortably. He's not a knockout artist at heavyweight, which is not great news. Chase Sherman, on the other hand, I would say he's more of the knockout threat, but that cardio is god awful. He fought Parker Porter, and after that first round, he looked awful. Like he looked as bad as Matt Mitrione on season 10 of The Ultimate Fighter. Watch that. That's one of the worst performances you ever see. The guy had like fish arms. The guy is just really awful stuff we've seen from Chase Sherman. Ever since he got off of the steroid that made him beat Ike Villanueva. The fact that the guy had to take steroids to beat Ike Villanueva, who's a light heavyweight, is actually hilarious. It's actually hilarious. Chase Sherman is a low-level fighter, and Jared Vanderaa will kick him out of the UFC with this one. Unanimous decision. Maybe we see a third-round TKO, but yeah, Jared Vanderaa by decision is a super confident pick of mine.
Absolutely, I agree with you on this pick. Vanderaa is going to pretty much beat Chase Sherman anywhere it goes. I don't see this one going to the mat. Definitely, I think these both strikers, both fights are stand and bang. But I think Vanderaa is just going to get the better of him. If you look at Chase Sherman, his last few fights, got submitted against Romov, got submitted against Jake Collier, outstruck and some obviously outgrappled against Parker Porter, and obviously outstruck by Andrei Arlovski. But other than that, it's not looking great for Chase Sherman. I'm on the Vanderaa side. I think Vanderaa gets this one done. And he talked about Andrei Arlovski arguably won that fight. Who doesn't get submitted by Alexei Oleinik in that position? When he loses the either submission or grappling threats. Sold from the Arlovski loss. Alexei Oleinik, he got finished. Romanov, he got finished. Spivak, he got finished. Other than that, he beat Justin Taffer. Justin Taffer's a fantastic kickboxer, and he outstruck him and got the job done. Knocked out Harry Hunsucker. I think he can either get his job done. I mean, he can get his job done. He's going to beat Chase Sherman, and most likely Chase Sherman back to either BKFC or back to I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't see Vanderaa not losing this one. But this is heavyweight. We've seen crazy thing happens.
Yeah, here's the names Chase Sherman has beat in the UFC: Rashad Coulter, Damian Gradabowski, and then you go over and it's the Ike Villanueva fight, which he was on steroids for, but it was not overturned for whatever reason. That's literally it. A bunch of nobodies and a guy who is not even a heavyweight on short notice. That is really bad. And he's losing in bare knuckle. Let's be honest, bare knuckle guys are not high level. So Chase Sherman is not UFC caliber at all. So I say Jared Vanderaa will let him know that this Saturday. Move on now to the opener of the main card. This is a fantastic fight. This should guarantee violence. Probably the fight of the night here. Michael Johnson back after just 8 weeks, and he's taken on Jamie Malarkey, who in his last fight, unfortunately had to fight Jalen the Tarantula Turner. Both guys coming off of tough opponents. Alan Patrick was Michael Johnson's last opponent, and he lost that first round in my eyes. He got rocked twice by Alan Patrick. Alan Patrick is a guy that's like one of these balanced fighters, but I would say Alan, his best strength is like his wrestling, and he did take down Michael Johnson in that fight, but of course, Alan, not all that damaging or great jiu-jitsu on top, so not that much of a threat, but he was really wild in that first round, and he was able to hurt Michael. Michael is truly a shell of himself from the guy that was knocking out Dustin back in 2016. But the thing you still can say about him, he's got quick hands, and he does hit hard. He's taken on Jamie Mullarkey, who is super hittable. He absorbs a ton of strikes all the time against Jalen Turner. He got demolished, and that was one of those fights where you finally saw the chin crack on him. Outside of the Jalen Turner fight, the last time he got stopped was the fight against Alexander the Great Volkanovski, and shortly thereafter he joins Alex in his camp. Jamie Mullarkey has really solid wrestling. When he took Ferrestiyama on, he took him down 5 times. He's able to get takedowns on a lot of these guys, and his jiu-jitsu is not all that bad. Even when he fought Brad Riddell, he was in all kinds of trouble. He got knocked down a ton of times in that fight. He still got takedowns, and he still got Brad Riddell's back. So the guy has absolutely no quit in him. He's a bit of a slow starter, but I would say he's like a lightweight Darren Elkins almost. If you let the guy survive for too long, the guy will make you pay most likely. And with Michael Johnson, what's been the guy's story as of late, prior to that comeback he had, he wins fights early, and then something just goes wrong, and the guy just folds, and he gets finished or he loses the decision. I think it's going to be a typical Michael Johnson loss. He's going to light up Jamie Mullarkey in round 1, but once he starts getting a little tired, once he starts eating some of those body shots, once he starts getting taken down, he's going to fold. He's going to give up his back, just like he did to Darren Elkins, and he's going to get submitted in round 2.
Yeah, everything I see, you said that I pretty much agree with you, but I'm on the other side of it. I think Michael Johnson's getting this one done. If you look at Jamie Mullarkey, he's been finished 3 times by strikes in his 5 losses. Just suspect to that chin. And I think obviously he talks about Michael Johnson. He's fast, he hits hard, and I think in that first round is the most dangerous Michael Johnson, and that's where I think he's going to crack Jamie Mullarkey in that first round. And I think we're going to see an explosive start to the main card.
Wow, that would be very impressive by Michael Johnson, getting 2 wins inside of 2 months after having that really bad streak of like 7 fights with no wins. So, yeah, I would love to see Michael get another win, but we can't forget that the guy is on a serious career decline, and he had somewhat of a favorable matchup in his last one. And Jamie, if it just stays striking, it could be a favorable matchup too. So, but I will pick Jamie Mullarkey to weather that storm and get that finish. Moving on now to the prelims. This is a fascinating fight at flyweight, a women's flyweight. Cynthia Calvillo taking on Nina Nunes. So both women are coming off of losses where they got finished. Cynthia Calvillo, she had a really interesting story. So at strawweight, she had a fantastic run. She only lost to one woman, and that is the current strawweight champion, Carla Esparza. She got out-grappled in that fight, of course. And then she fought Marina Rodriguez, who you could argue is the most deserving contender right now. And that was a draw. And that was a fight where she definitely outstruck Marina Rodriguez. So she only has a loss to the champion and a draw with the number 1 contender. And then she moves up a division, fights Jessica Ai in the main event, dominates her 50-45. And then she goes in as a big favorite versus Caitlin Chookagian. I really thought she was going to be able to ragdoll Caitlin, but that was not the case. Caitlin stuffs the takedowns, outboxes her. Then she takes on Jessica Andrade. She gets clipped and, basically folds in that fight. It was a standing TKO. And then we see her take on Andrea KGB Lee. I was super confident she would just dominate KGB Lee because she got out-grappled by Roxanne Montefiore, but no. She didn't go for a ton of takedowns in that fight. She stood with her, and she got pieced up. She was super hittable. Her striking defense was way off. She looked awful in that fight. She got her nose broken. Her eye was almost swollen shut. And then at the end of round 2, her corner waves it off because she took too much damage. She looked really awful in that fight. And Nina Nunes, on the other hand, was ranked number 3 in the world at one point. She only lost to, Tatiana Suarez. And then she took a little break there because of injuries. She had a child with the current featherweight champion Amanda Nunes, and then she fights Mackenzie Dern. I was super confident she would beat Mackenzie Dern because she's a solid defensive wrestler, but one takedown from Mackenzie and you're done. She got hit with that armbar. Now she's moving up a weight class, which I don't like seeing that late in careers because that usually doesn't go well. But we're also talking about Cynthia Calvillo, who looked really bad in her last fight. So I'm going to take Nina Nunes in this fight just because Cynthia Calvillo looked like mentally defeated in her last two fights. Nina Nunes, on the other hand, she did leave American Top Team, but she's still working with the best female fighter of all time. So I'm going to side with Nina Nunes. We didn't get to see any improvements she may have made against Mackenzie Dern. We saw zero striking in that fight. She's a girl that at one point beat Claudia Gadeja when Claudia Gadeja was like the real deal. She was having competitive fights with Joanna and Jacek. I know she's like one of the older fighters of the division, but I'm going to assume she made some improvements in that time off. So I will side with Nina Nunes. If Cynthia Calvillo was firing on all cylinders, I would pick her to win this fight. She should be able to get takedowns, get some top position going. But Nina Nunes, she has been able to defend a ton of takedowns with Tatiana Suarez back in the day. So I'm going to side with Nina Nunes. I think she's probably a better striker. So, yeah, I'll side with her.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Cynthia Calvillo. Pretty much topped everything that you said. After the pregnancy and Nina Nunes, I think it was a break that might have not helped her career moving forward. She missed a lot of time away. Obviously, not being able. I know she was still training when she was pregnant. There's videos of her punching the pads with the baby. So yeah, it's incredible. But I just see Cynthia just being able to get better of Nina Nunes. The grappling, I feel like they're going to cancel each other out. I think Cynthia is a good grappler. Nunes also. But if it does go grappling, I think Nunes can get the better of Calvillo. But that's a tough one. But striking wise, I see Calvillo getting the better of Nunes, and that's where I see this fight going. But this is a tough one to pick. To be honest, not one I'd really bet on, but that's a very, very hard one to choose.
Yeah, if you have to bet on somebody, I say bet Nina Nunes because Cynthia is actually a 2-1 favorite.
Well, that's a good bet if you're picking Nunes, but I'm picking Calvillo. I think Calvillo can get this one done. I see her returning back to winning ways. Nina Nunes gets submitted by Mackenzie Dern in the last fight. Obviously Cynthia Calvillo 3 back-to-back losses. I think it's going to be a night this Saturday, and I think she's going to return back to the winning ways. So that's 2 now. Told you so fight of the week that I'll be able to tell you we'll get about next week.
Yeah, loving it so far. We'll move on now to the bantamweight fight between Ayman Zahabi and Ricky Turcios, the Ultimate Fighter 29 bantamweight champion. This should be a fun one. I don't think I've ever seen a boring fight out of Ricky. The guy had some wars in that tough house, man. The war with Ludovic Sholinian, and then he had the fight of the night with Brady Stehand in the finale. The guy has no quitting him. He's got a solid chin on him, and he kind of reminds me of Tony Ferguson. The guy is actually happy to get taken down, play off his back, but he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He got his black belt awarded to him after he fought Brady, but he didn't get submission in that fight. I don't exactly think he's one of those super high-level black belts, but he is a threat there. And on the feet, he does have some pop on his punches, super high output, and he's got a chin you can trust. He's not going to get knocked out with. He's one of those guys from the early Contender Series days. He lost to Boston Salmon. Talking about his chin, he did get knocked out by Mana Martinez, but since then he's taken some heavy shots and he's been able to stay in the fight. But Mana does hit very hard, I will say that. But for Ricky, he's fighting a guy named Zahabi who is incredibly inactive, which is really weird. He knocks out Draco Rodriguez in like a minute, and the guy proceeds to take like a year off. I don't know exactly what's going on with this guy. He's got 10 pro fights, but he's been around like a very long time. Like I remember back in November of 2017 when he fought Ricardo Ramos. Like this guy's been around a while, but he doesn't fight a lot. He lost that fight to Hikaru Hamas by that spinning back elbow. That was a fight he was actually winning the first 2 rounds of. Then he comes back 2 years later and he fights Vince Morales. Vince Morales, I think he might have been cut now. I'm not sure, but he's on a losing
Yeah.
streak, and he lost that fight to Morales. Yeah, and then he, as I said, he fought Draco Rodriguez, knocks him out with an overhand right. Aims the hobbies like I'm not convinced he's all that good. Ricky Tercios, on the other hand, we know a ton more about him. We do know he will fight hard for 15 minutes. But I don't think Ricky Tercios is the guy you want to bet on here because Aim Zahabi, of course, has a fantastic coach, Faraz Zahabi. And if I'm Faraz, I'm telling him take down Ricky because Ricky's happy to stay on his back. And if he can stay safe from those positions, he could win this fight via doing that. But I'm not convinced Faraz is all that fantastic of a wrestler. He has gotten some takedowns in the UFC, but I think Ricky will be the guy doing more damage on the feet. So I'm going to pick Ricky to win by decision.
Absolutely, I've got to agree with you. You talked about Ricky and how good he is at jiu-jitsu, trains out Gracie Barra. But if you look at his record, only one submission win. You talked about that black belt, and has he really earned it? But obviously he's got to put in the dedication, got that black belt, but not really much. We're not really seeing much of it because he's an absolute savage. He likes to get in there and stand and trade shots and bleed. It's as you talked about, probably the bantamweight or the featherweight. Sorry, it is featherweight, right? Bantamweight, Tony Ferguson. This guy's an absolute savage. He bleeds a lot. He's a likable character, and I feel like we've been waiting a very long time for Ricky fight. Finally, it came around. He's got a very good personality. He's good on the mic, and finally we get to see him fight again against Zahabi. I think who's going to get the better of. I think obviously Zahabi got knocked out against Ricardo Ramos, so that spinning back fist, but. To be honest, I don't really see Ricky knocking him out. I think obviously Zahabi got clipped by a shot he probably didn't see coming, and a spinning back fist. I believe in Zahabi's chin that he's going to be able to withhold the punishment. But I just see Ricky being better on the feet and on the ground as well. I see Ricky being able to get a better of Zahabi. I think this is a good fight, a good matchup for him. I think like the UFC matched him up really well, and I think he's going to get 2 back-to-back wins inside the UFC. This is going to be entertaining. Probably fight the night contender after we talk about it next week.
Yeah, Ricky always is down for a scrap, and he brings it out of his opponents too. Ricky stands with more of like a wrestler, and he goes in there brawls with Ricky. And the thing with Ricky, you gotta love, very active in terms of his stand-up, always high volume. So I think the judges will definitely favor him when it's all said and done. Move on now to the next fight. Antonina Shevchenko taking on Courtney Casey. This is a fascinating fight. This is one of those fights that where the UFC is trying to give somebody an opportunity to win. But will he win? Let's see. Antonina Shevchenko, a fantastic Muay Thai fighter, but her transition to MMA has not been smooth. She lost to Roxanne Modafferi, who Roxanne had a huge experience advantage over her, as she does over everybody. Courtney Casey, on the other hand, in her last 8 fights, she's only won 3 of them. She's lost 5 of her last 8. So Courtney Casey is a striker. The big hole in her game, I would say, is the grappling and the submission defense. Got submitted by Jillian Robertson, of course. Shevchenko, on the other hand, I will say she's making improvements. She took on Ariane Lipsky and was able to finish her with ground and pound. So she's not entirely one-dimensional, but against a very physically strong grappler like Casey O'Neill, she's gonna be screwed there. But Courtney Casey, the girl that stands and bangs with like everybody, she fought Angela Hill. Angela Hill, if you want to fight Angela Hill, I say go for some takedowns. Right now, she didn't really go for them. She stood with Angela Hill. She won the split decision. I actually thought she didn't win that fight, but yeah, Courtney Casey, not very high level in terms of overall skills. Shevchenko, she does have that good skill in her Muay Thai, so I will side with Antonina Shevchenko to win this one. I know Casey will definitely go for takedowns in this fight, but Shevchenko, I don't think she's screwed on the ground against Courtney Casey, quite honestly. I know Casey got Brandon Marcos with an armbar back in the day, but I'll just assume Shevchenko can defend herself there. I know she got submitted by Andrea Lee, but yeah, that was one of those fights where Andrea Lee really showed out. I think this is going to be a lot of striking and Shevchenko doing clearly more damage. Of course, she's working with her sister. If she hasn't made any improvements working with Valentina Shevchenko, what the hell is she doing? So I'll side with her to win by decision.
Yeah, and to be honest, this is a tough fight to pick because, to be honest, this is a possibility of going 50,000 ways. When we talk about Shevchenko, Casey, I mean, when Shevchenko came into the UFC, there was a lot of hype around her because obviously our last name, who her sister was, and to be honest, she's came in and she's not. I'm not trying to disrespect, but she's been a little bit disappointing. I was expecting a lot more from her. Obviously because the sister, and you thought how good she can she be, and she's not been as great as we thought, and I have no belief in Shevchenko, and Casey Kenny, not Casey Kenny, Courtney Casey is I feel like has that experience edge, fought a lot of fights inside the UFC, has a lot of grit, likes to come forward and strike, but I think that the grappling advantage, I feel like anyone in that division has grappling advantage over Shevchenko. And you talked about Casey.
Well, not Ariane Lipsky. She got finished off there.
Well, yeah, not Ariane, but I just feel like anyone can have a grappling advantage over Shevchenko. As I know she hasn't been, the fed of the greatest matchups in the last few fights. Casey O'Neill and Andrea Lee. The UFC have done her no favors, but I just need to see a performance for me to trust Shevchenko moving forward. And I think Saturday night, I think it will just say to me that I just can't trust her. I think Courtney Casey's going to win, so I would not bet on this one either as well.
Yeah. The other grappling loss that we saw from Shevchenko was Kaylin Chagagan, who is a black belt, works at Renzo Gracie's gym all the time. She looked very dominant in that fight. I don't think, according to Casey, I don't believe she's ever been ranked. At least everybody that Shevchenko's lost, it was ranked opposition. So I think this is a step down in competition that is catered towards Shevchenko getting this win. Move on now to the next fight. Cody Brundage taking on Tresean Gore. This fight is at middleweight, I believe. And Cody Brundage, he took on Dalcha Lungiambula in his last fight. And he was about to get finished. So he got rocked, and then Dalcha was landing ground and pound up against the fence. And it looked like Cody was done. And then Dalcha just gets too tired of punching him. So he decides to take him down, tries to, lay on top of him. But he left his neck exposed. And Cody gets that guillotine in round one. Crazy comeback, because I thought it was over for him. Tresean Gore, on the other hand, looked like a killer in the Ultimate Fighter house. Don't let his 4-1 record fool you. The guy, he got, what was it, like 3 wins in the Tough House. He fought Ryder Newman and Gilbert Urbina. The beating he put on Gilbert Urbina, I believe nobody's, like, that's one of the ugliest beatings I've seen in the Tough House. He dropped him constantly, destroying him with leg kicks. Tresean Gore is a very powerful striker, but I'll be honest, I see him as a welterweight. Like, I don't see a middleweight for him on this guy. You put him next to Adesanya or like Jared Kennear or Martin Vittori. Like, I don't think this guy's like an actual middleweight. But the thing with Cody Brundage is his striking defense is not all that good. His footwork is inferior to Tresean. Tresean is aware of the mistakes he's made his last couple fights. In fact, he's gone to Fight Ready MMA and the Fight Lab. He's worked with Jared Kennear. I know he's looking to improve. He's still a young fighter, and he's very underdeveloped. Cody will look to wrestle. I think he could get some takedowns here against Tresean, but I think Tresean will be well prepared for that. And on the feet, he will be the more damaging striker. It's all about increasing the output for Tresean, because that is a concern there. Because in his last fight with Brian Battle, I thought he could have won that easily had he just pulled the trigger. But he was a little gun-shy on that. So if he really goes for it here, I think he'll win himself Yeah, I actually think he'll get himself a second round knockout. Cody Brundage was pretty much done against Dalcha. I think Trayshawn has a better gas tank than Dalcha.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you look at it in his last fight, after the first and the second round, that's where Gore obviously starts to slow down. But Brian Battle is a fantastic prospect, and
Yeah.
he just ran into the better man that night, and possibly the better fighter. So, as you talked about, Trajan Gore hits like an absolute truck. I think the first and the second round is where most likely for a finish for Trajan Gore. And if you look at Cody Brundage, his only knockout loss in his professional career was to William Knight, and that was up at 205 pounds. So it's interesting to see where how that affected, and obviously the loss against Nick Maximov, his amateur record as well. He got knocked out against Dalton Roster, but there's not too much to really look into that. The first and the second round is going to be interesting. That's where Gore's going to be sharp. He's going to be very, very fresh, and that's where he's going to have his most power. And if you get hit by Gore, I just see you getting your lights out. And I'm going to believe in the Gore power, and I think that either the first or the second round, Gore's going to put his lights out. But if it gets past mid-second or into the third round, Cody Brundage could really turn around.
Yeah, but Brundage in his last fight with Dalcha, he was looking to weather that storm. He was looking for Dalcha to be tired. Trajan Gore, we kind of criticize him for having low output, but if you have low output, how are you going to get tired? So I think this is going to be a bad night at the office for Cody Brundage. His striking defense just very poor, a little underdeveloped there in terms of that realm. Move on now to guys who I wouldn't say all that underdeveloped in the striking realm. Two dangerous strikers, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Carl Roberson, the former Glory kickboxer. Since he's moved to MMA, his big struggle has been submission defense. He got submitted by Glover Teixeira, but a lot of people forget this. He had Glover Teixeira basically out. Glover Teixeira was getting hit with a ton of elbows. I thought Glover Teixeira was about to get knocked out, but Carl Roberson, of course, he eventually got caught in that arm triangle, had to tap. He fought, who was it? Marvin Vettori. That was a big rivalry for Marvin Vettori. That was Marvin Vettori's coming out party. Got trapped in a guillotine in that one. And then he takes on Brendan Allen, and he makes one of the worst fight IQ decisions I've seen. He goes for like a foothold with Brendan Allen. He gets caught in the knee bar, gets tapped out there. So that's been his big problem. But good news for him. He's fighting Kennedy Nzechukwu, who does not look to take anybody down, is happy to strike with whoever, even if it means him getting knocked out. Dong Jung. That Dong Jung fight, he was actually doing good against Dong Jung, but one heavy elbow in the clinch, and he goes down like a tree. The ref should have said timber, because my goodness, the guy went down. And then after that, he goes and he takes a step down in competition. The guy has fought as high as a top 15 guy in Paul Craig. He was piecing up Paul Craig on the feet, but he got submitted as people do against Paul Craig. But against Nikolai Negumereanu, that was a straight-up robbery. That was and that's one of those robberies where you're looking at your friend like, can you believe this? Because he was very clearly outstriking Nikolai, landing a ton of strikes, and Nikolai gets poked in the eye, I believe, once or twice. There was like some point deductions in the mix, but if you do the math, it's a very clear win for Nzechukwu, even if you deduct points. So, in my eyes, he's really not coming off a loss. Carl Roberson, on the other hand, he had a little stint there at middleweight, and that weight cut was very bad to him. And he moved back up to light heavyweight. He fought Khalil Roundtree, and he got bullied against Khalil. Khalil backed him up the whole fight, and then he's able to tag him, and then he gets him on the ground and punt, kick right to the body. Are Intoxicated says the prelims are not too good. I completely disagree. These are fantastic prelims in my eyes. I don't know about you, but I think we're going to have very exciting prelims. When the first fight of the night is Rodney Lawrence versus Saidi Okub Kakramanov, I think we're in for a treat with these prelims, quite honestly. Carl Roberson, he's fallen on hard times, but a lot of those hard times have been to grapplers. I'm going to side with Carl Roberson here. He has that K1 kickboxing background. Kennedy, on the other hand, He does have the height and reach advantage, but he's not as clean. He's a little green. I will side with Carl Roberson to win this fight via split decision. Kennedy, even against Darko Stocic, he was losing that fight on their feet. So I'm gonna give this fight to Carl Roberson, but it's gonna be close.
Yeah, I've got Carl Robertson in this one as well. Carl Robertson, he's gone back and forth between 205, 185 pounds. Eventually said he doesn't want to cut anymore. Here he is back at 205 pounds. When they get in the octagon, I feel like the size of Kennedy is going to look huge compared to Robertson. Obviously, he's stuck in between of the two weight classes, but I think Kennedy is obviously the much bigger man. Physically, he's going to look that. And obviously his cardio is I believe is a real problem. And I feel like Carl Robinson is good. This is a good matchup for him, because if you look at his last few fights, Khalil Roundtree, Brendan Allen, and Marvin Torrey, as you talked about, fighters that are obviously levels, but obviously no disrespect in Chuku, levels above him. And I feel like Robinson has got a good matchup for him to showcase his skills and get back to winning records, winning back to winning ways. But yeah, this one is probably a tough one to pick as well, because anything can happen. We've seen against Kennedy when he fought Carlos Ulberg. Carlos Ulberg, I believe, might have been the favorite, and he came in absolutely lights off. So Kennedy is a tricky one to pick against, but I believe in Robertson, and I think he's going to get the job done. I believe no one would shoot a takedown, but we've seen it in the past by Carl, so who knows?
Yeah, that should be a fun kickboxing stand-up fight. And I think Carl Roberson has more of a knockout threat too in that fight as well. He almost knocked out the champion, for goodness sake, the former champion. We'll move on now to the first fight of the night. This should be a straight-up banger. It is between Ronnie Lawrence and Saidio Kakhramonov. This is like a prospect versus prospect type fight. Ronnie Lawrence is one of the few guys Dana White has ever called special. He saw him compete on the Contender Series. He looked like a straight-up monster in there. Crazy, good cardio, tons of wrestling ability, excellent ground and pound. And on the feet, he's got real pop on his punches, too. Saidio Kakhramonov, this guy is not being talked about enough. So he's already fought the future champion in my eyes. He already fought Umar Nurmagomedov back in the PFL, and he was able to defend some of those takedowns, and he did not get dominated like Umar does to pretty much everybody. So he's one of those guys that's very capable wherever the fight goes. And in his UFC debut, I picked against him when he took on Trevin Jones, and he looked awesome out there. Trevin Jones, he got beat to the punch constantly. He got worn down by the grappling, and eventually, when he was going for a takedown, he got caught in the guillotine, and the lights got put out on Trevin Jones. I was very impressed with Saidio Cup. He also fought Askar. If you don't remember Askar, he's the guy with the double name, and he was going to fight Cody Stamann on Show Nordis one time, and for whatever reason, I think he pulled out, and then the UFC cut him. So he was trying to work his way back into the UFC. So they put him up against Saidio Cup, and Saidio Cup knocks this guy out in like a minute. So he's capable. And against Ronnie Lawrence, I usually pick Ronnie Lawrence in pretty much all his fights, but that last fight against Mano Martinez, there was some real red flags there, huh? In those first 2 rounds, he looked super dominant. It looked like he was on his way to finishing the fight. He dropped Mano Martinez, I believe 2-3 times. But come that 3rd round, he got dropped twice by Mano Martinez. I know we just talked about how good Mano Martinez's power is. He knocked out Ricky Tercios, but Ronnie Lawrence, he will be there to be hit. And Saidio Cup does have power in his hands. He does have really good kicks. And we already said his grappling defense is good. If you look at the guys that Ronnie Lawrence has fought so far, that are somewhat high level, we're talking about Jose Johnson, Vince Cachero, and Mano Martinez. Not any of those guys have good grappling defense. So he's going to be facing resistance in this fight, and I don't think it's going to go well for him. I think he's going to get the majority of his takedowns stuffed. And on the feet, I think Saidio Cup might be the better striker and be the guy that's more capable of getting a knockout. So I'll side with Saidukub by decision.
Absolutely agree with you. When I sent over the picks, I was very unsure because obviously Ronnie Lawrence, when he announced himself to the UFC fans, his debut against Vince, it was phenomenal. I believe what he shot maybe 20 or was it 18 takedowns, I believe.
Something crazy, yeah.
Something crazy. So he's got that cardio. We've seen it in the past. But Manny Martinez, I don't know what it was about that performance. He looked off that night. Hopefully we see a better performance, but there's something about Sadiyukub that I love. As you talked about seeing him pass against Usman Nurmagomedov, he defended that takedown. He done well in the grappling, and he's got that striking threat. And the only time that Sadiyukub is lost, he's either been knocked out. And if you look at Ronnie's record, most of it's either tap from strikes, or ground from pound, and a few submissions, but nothing to really stand out to me that Ronnie Lawrence is going to start Sadiyukub. So that gives me extreme confidence Sadiyukub that he's going to be able to not get finished and withhold the grappling defense and be able to take it to the scorecards. And I think he's going to get a better Ronnie Lawrence, but which is crazy to me because I think Ronnie Lawrence is a fantastic prospect, but I feel like this is going to be a learning lesson for him.
Yeah, his only losses are to Umar, unanimous decision, and he got caught with a flying knee in the third round before. So, yeah, but besides that, the guy has looked really good all around. I think he's a really good prospect, and I think he could rematch Umar somewhere down the line. So I think I know we were all hyped up on Ronnie Lawrence, but he's showing some real holes in his game. I know he's working with James Krause, but real holes in the game. Saidiyukub, on the other hand, has not shown as bad of holes, in my opinion, as Ronnie Lawrence. So I think Saidiyukub should be the real prospect in here, and I think he should be the one that's the favorite.
Absolutely agree. That pretty much rounds up UFC Vegas 58. The card looks good. The main event is fantastic. A battle of Rafael's. Obviously the prelims are very good. Some other very fights on the prelims as well. The co-main event is one that I'm very, very looking forward to. I think Barboza is an absolute animal, and he's going to put on a fantastic performance. Not too really stacked of fights this weekend. We've only got the one that is the UFC, but we also got some boxing, which is Derek Chisora versus Kubrat Pulev, but I'm not too sure if you'll watch that, but I don't really want to talk about that, to be honest. A fight that shouldn't be going ahead.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Pulev versus Dos Santos, and boy, am I happy we didn't get Dos Santos knocked out in the triangle.
Absolutely. And obviously JDS. Since then, I can't remember where he's gone.
Jorgen De Castro in Eagle FC, and he blew his shoulder out after winning 2 rounds.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and then Jorgen De Castro, if I'm correct, maybe got booked. I'm not too sure.
I think he's in a title fight. He might be in a title fight with Rizvan Kuniev, the Eagle FC champion.
He is fighting. Oh, well, I can't see it off the top of my head. No, I can't see it. So, guide. But yeah, not too many fights this weekend. Obviously, we talked about UFC Vegas 58. You got Chisora versus Kubrat Pulev. We could probably touch up about Money in the Bank, but I didn't really watch it.
Yeah, I saw the highlights yesterday. Yeah, we had who was in the main event. It was won by Theory with the help of Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon, of course, at the UFC fights later that night. Despite the allegations, which is really wild with Vince McMahon. And also we had Liv Morgan winning the Money in the Bank and cashing in on former UFC bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey after Ronda Rousey defeated Natalia via armbar. That was pretty wild to see Ronda Rousey lose because Ronda, she really never loses in the WWE. But yeah, MMA guy's doing great. Also, the guy that won Money in the Bank, Theory, he lost to Bobby Lashley, former Bellator guy, and he got submitted via full Nelson, known as the Hurt Lock. So MMA guy's doing well. Love to see. Anthony Smith also popped up on Raw. He was like in the front row. His kids are apparently big fans of the 400-pound wrestler Otis. So just a little crossover there in the MMA world with WWE. And what else did I want to say? Oh, yeah. Also, another fight you could put Jalen Turner in. I would like to know your take on this. What if you put Jalen Turner with another tall guy, Dan Hooker?
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic matchup. And if I'm honest, a dangerous matchup for Dan Hooker.
Yeah, I think Dan Hooker, if he shows up like he did like back in the day against Dustin Poirier, like when he was on this A game, I think he could really humble Jalen Turner. Dan Hooker's a very capable wrestler too. When he fought Nasrat Haqparast, he looked fantastic there. So I would love to see that
matchup for Jalen Turner. I was thinking maybe Honoto Moicano, and you got some good ones.
Yeah, 100%. Cannot wait. I do have a matchmaking podcast in development for anybody still listening. It will be called On to the Next One, and I will be co-hosting it with Ross Thornton, who runs the MMA matchmaking page on Instagram. Make sure to follow him. We've just been trying to get the ball rolling so far, throwing some ideas out there. So if anybody wants more on the matchmaking side, you can find that there. The podcast feed is not available yet, but it will be soon.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to watch it live on YouTube, you can catch it right here.
Yeah, on this very channel. Yeah, we've already got a solid subscriber base. And yeah, we'll do well on this YouTube channel. That's about it for this podcast.
Absolutely, a fantastic way to let it go. Some fantastic fights this weekend. Make sure you all enjoy them. We talk to you all next week when we get to talk about the battle for Rafael's and also the fight after that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Is UFC Long Island, and that is between Brian Ortega and Yair Rodriguez.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So we got a good episode next week. We get to talk about this main event this weekend and obviously Yair versus Ortega. So make sure you catch us all next week. Tuesday, same time, 6 p.m. British summer time and 12 p.m. Central time. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you all next week. Have a good one.